They are the rest of the puzzle.
Hey, welcome back to ScreenCrush. I'm Ryan Airy with all the Easter eggs, references, and little things you might have missed in The Bad Batch Season 3, Episode 12, Juggernaut. I'll be honest, not my favorite episode of the show, and I think it's a step back for the season. I'll explain why a little later in the video, but first, have you guys seen this Good Soldiers Follow Orders shirt at our merch store? We designed this shirt ourselves. It is a tribute to the finale of the Clone Wars and that haunting clone refrain.
Good soldiers follow orders.
I love this shirt so much. The link for it is below, and of course, if you shop our store, then you're helping to support the channel and helping us to make videos like this one.
Thank you, General.
So the title of the episode is Juggernaut, meaning an unstoppable force, like the Juggernaut vehicle in the high-speed chase, but the episode also has a metaphorical Juggernaut. The Empire seems unstoppable in their quest to detain Omega and use her DNA to create a clone of Palpatine. And yes, there is also an X-Men villain called the Juggernaut, who we've seen in the comics, the animated series, and 2 movies.
I'm the Juggernaut, bitch!
Let's just say 1 movie. The episode opens with Clone X's ship flying into Mount Tantis, and it occurred to me that for a hidden mountain base, it sure does not look like a normal topographical feature. I know the location of the planet is secret, but you think they would have not carved several rings out of the mountain to make it so conspicuous.
Any more bright ideas, Professor?
As the ship flies into Tantis, notice the theme is very mechanical. So this is similar to the inhibitor chip theme that we've heard ever since the show's first scene. The theme always implies Imperial control, technology, and machinery. And in Mount Tantis, the Empire is trying to harness the power of life, the Force, and mechanize it into a commodity that they can replicate. Omega has once again been kidnapped, and now the base is crawling with Republic commandos as security has been redoubled to keep her from escaping. And now, Dr. Carr, another clone similar to Omega, will be her new guardian in place of Nala Se. So one thing about Carr's character design is that she always wears these grid-like glasses. This is to show us how she sees the world, through the lens of order and technology. Everything in the Empire is very angular, right angle, straight lines, and this is how Carr sees the world, as something to be ordered. And that's essentially what the cloners are trying to do. They're trying to take the force of life and shove it into a box, like the boxes on the grid of her glasses. And yet, Carr chose to keep Omega's doll. She has reservations about kidnapping children, and Omega can sense her reluctance.
You don't have to do this.
This is exactly what she said to Crosshair in episode 1 when she could sense that he wanted to leave the squad.
I know what you're going to do, but please don't.
Hey, person, can I ask you a personal question?
Yeah, man, what's up?
Why are you wearing that headband? Did you get an embarrassing prison tattoo?
Oh, no, dude, I'm gonna work out after work. You know, warm weather's coming. I gotta burn off the Easter candy and the Christmas candy. Last Easter's Christmas candy. I just want to be healthier, and that's why I drink my foundational nutrition drink, AG1. They're the sponsor of this video. This is my daily dietary supplement to make sure that I get all the vitamins and minerals that my body needs throughout the entire day. It has 75 different ingredients, including vitamins, minerals, superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens. AG1 supports whole body health, your brain, your gut, and your immune system. It helps me focus, gives me more energy, and it is great for workout recovery because of its high magnesium content. It is perfect if you haven't worked out for a while and you're just starting to get back into it. It really cuts down on muscle soreness. And I gotta tell you guys, there are days like when we drop Easter egg videos when I just cannot find the time to eat healthy. But AG1 has all the vitamins and minerals that I need. It improves my mood, lowers my stress level. It is the perfect all-in-one nutritional foundation for my day. And it's also very easy to use. You have 1 scoop. I like to add in a little bit of the vitamin D3 plus K2 shake. And that's all you need for the day, every day. Now, because this is so easy, it's become an essential part of my daily routine. No messy blenders, just powder, water, shake, and I'm on my way to a healthier day. Now, if you sign up with our link in the description, you get a free welcome kit that includes the canister, a shaker, a year's supply of vitamin D3 plus K2, and 5 extra travel packs of AG1. Just click our link in the description to get started on your first purchase of AG1. Back to the Bad Batch. So, I mentioned how everything in the Empire is designed to be very angular and rigid, and the contrast to this has always been to show the rebels living within nature. The rebels have always made their bases in jungles or ice caves, or they ally themselves with native inhabitants to destroy the Imperial machine. This episode also features this contrast, going from the unnatural mountain of Tantis to the organically grown mountain of Pabu. Now, in Pabu, architecture uses natural materials like wood, and there are always curves and swoops, more like the elven architecture that we see in Rivendell and Fellowship of the Ring. So the team regroups. Now, at the end of last episode, I assumed that Echo would show up to help them since he, is a member of the Bad Batch. But last season, he pretty much left the team team to go join up with Rex, so I guess they've written him off the show completely. It makes sense though, because Echo and Tech could fulfill a lot of the same functions, and having Tech off the show now means the Bad Batch should struggle with technology more. If Echo is around to fulfill that role, then it means that basically Tech's sacrifice meant nothing. Crosshair suggests going after Admiral Rampart to find the location of Tantis.
Now wait a minute, who's that?
So Rampart was their main antagonist in Season 1. He was placed in charge of implementing Imperial chain codes, basically social security numbers that let the Empire control people.
No planetary travel without a chain code.
And then he was put in charge of transitioning the Empire from a clone army to a conscripted army. He ordered the destruction of Kamino at the end of Season 1, but then in Season 2, when the destruction was made public, the Emperor threw him under the bus.
This unprovoked attack on Kamino was a cowardly act by Admiral Rampart to further his own personal agenda.
Now, I'm surprised that he's still alive, actually. It would have made a lot more sense for the Empire to execute him, but the Empire was building such massive projects like the Death Star that it enslaved entire planets across the galaxy. So I guess actually it makes sense that they would have forced prisoners like Rampart, or Cassian Andor, into being prisoners with jobs. When Crosshair thinks of Mount Tantis, his hand begins to shake. So this is his PTSD manifesting, like we've talked about in past episodes. But this is also where we see that his trauma is specifically related to what they did to him on Tantis, and not the traumatic events on Barton 4. But instead of Echo, Phee Genoa shows up in a secret tunnel
Through the mountain.
In the background, we can see Omega's Tukadal Lula, and thank God it wasn't on board when the Marauder exploded. Omega must have left it here with Tech's goggles, symbolically putting away childish things as she prepared to leave her childhood home.
Good, because I was really worried about that little doll.
Me too, actually. It's weird how you can get attached to inanimate objects just because they have names.
For the same reason, I can pick up this pencil, tell you its name is Steve, and go like this. Oh. And part of you dies.
I will say, though, that this shield in the background does look like it has the symbol of the Sith Eternal on it, but that's probably just a coincidence. So they track Rampart to an Imperial labor camp, which has a very similar design to the refinery on Morak that we saw in Chapter 15 of The Mandalorian. In that episode, Den and Mayfeld commandeer a CHWV Imperial Juggernaut transport, just like the Bad Batch do in this episode. And they also fight a battle on top of the transport while it's still moving, and they're all trying to rescue someone from the Empire, Grogu and Rampart. And now Rampart's grown a beard, reminding me of Agent Kallus in Star Wars Rebels. As soon as he left the Empire and joined the Rebellion, he immediately grew out his hair. We see that his working partner is an Ugnaught, and later in the episode we also see a Trandoshan and Rodian prisoner. When Phee goes into the atmosphere, she makes her ship undetectable by turning off its engines and placing it in stealth mode. And actually, Thrawn pulled off a similar tactic in the second Thrawn novel, Alliances. The troopers guarding the prisoners are regular human TK troopers. In fact, we rarely see clone troopers appear at all on this show anymore. Now, I like that this has happened gradually since Season 2, to show how the clones are slowly being eased out of Imperial service. And actually, I have a theory about that. In Season 2, Senator Chuchi gets a law passed that allows for the clones to get retirement and benefits.
What about the interests of the clone troopers? Why are they not included within this legislation?
I wonder if the Emperor's original plan, like way back when the clones were commissioned, was to use the clones in the war and then afterwards to use them as slave labor to build the Death Star. But when Senator Chuchi discovered the clone conspiracy, the Empire had to pivot and then use human prison labor instead. Ironically, this would have meant that fewer prisoners were executed, which meant that Cassian Andor was imprisoned, escaped, and joined the Rebellion and recovered the Death Star plans. So really, Senator Chuchi is responsible for the destruction of the Death Star and the rise of Luke Skywalker. So when the Batch takes over the transport, they stun the TK troopers instead of outright killing them, whereas they always used to kill troopers and stun their fellow clones. One thing I love about the regular TK troopers over clones, though, is how the TK troopers are always just portrayed as these working stiffs, like in A New Hope.
Do you know what's going on? Maybe it's another drill.
Or in this episode.
Hopefully, next assignment we'll see some action.
They realize that the interior is magnetically sealed, so it will deflect blaster bolts like the trash compactor in A New Hope.
You forget it! I already tried it! It's magnetically sealed!
Back at the base, this Imperial engineer notices that something is up. Notice the engineers wear the same gear as the Death Star gunner in A New Hope. Now, in the original film, this design was meant to give them the feel of an executioner's hood, since they were obliterating an entire planet. Now, at first, the commander was on his phone and couldn't care less. Wait, what is he watching?
That's the spirit, Lord Vader!
The Bad Batch's plan goes awry as they run through barricades at the bridge. Typical Juggernaut style.
I'm the Juggernaut, bitch!
And then they fight off the Imperial low-altitude assault transports that we first saw in Attack of the Clones. And when they land on top, I thought this was a fun reversal of an old trope. In Star Wars, we're used to seeing the heroes land on top of moving vehicles and commandeering them. Chewbacca and Jedi, Han and Solo, Din in The Mandalorian Chapter 2. I could go on. So it's really cool to see the hero have to fight off the villains. When they're on top, you really get to see a sense of scale for this thing. I mean, no wonder they call it a Juggernaut. Fee's ship pulls up to the transport before it can go over a cliff. It's an old trope for chase scenes like this. Think Back to the Future 3 or even the train heist in Solo. I did like, though, how this sequence forced Wrecker, of all people, to make a leap of faith. Because remember, he's scared of heights.
Well, I'm not scared of nothing. When I'm up real high, I got a problem with gravity.
Afterwards, the way the score fades away is very reminiscent of how John Williams' score twinkled away after the skiff battle in Return of the Jedi. So on Fee's ship, notice this cruddy looking couch in the background. Not an Easter egg, I just love the detail in that. That kind of tactile material, you feel like that's like a pleather, like in a DMV or something. It just really makes the ship and the world come alive. So they interrogate Rampart. Now he is wearing an orange prison jumpsuit. So this is interesting because in the Clone Wars we saw that Republic prisoners wear orange jumpsuits, whereas in the show Andor, Imperial prisoners are wearing white with orange trim. I read a great Reddit post by Careless Swiggin that theorized that this orange and white color scheme could have informed the early colors of the Rebellion flight suits, like the one worn in A New Hope. Maybe some of the earliest pilots were escaped prisoners who wore these colors for ironic effect. It's a really great theory. But seeing prisoners in orange here is also another way to show how the Empire is still transitioning away from the structures and institutions of the Republic. Rampart says that he doesn't know how to get to Tantis, but
I might know how to get around that.
And back on Tantis, Hemlock gives Omega an explanation of why she's so important. Her DNA allows the cloners to replicate M counts.
An individual's M count cannot be directly replicated each time. The level's degraded until we combine your sample.
Do you say what now?
So, M count is short for midi-chlorian count. Midi-chlorians are... Take it away, Qui-Gon.
Midi-chlorians are a microscopic life form that resides within all living cells. They continually speak to us, telling us the will of the Force.
So these microscopic life forms choose who they're going to live inside, and that's how they manifest the will of the Force. You cannot coerce them into living inside of a clone or just inject them into somebody. Midi-chlorians are a natural process because they follow the will of the Force. But Hemlock is trying to force a way to put midi-chlorians into a clone body, so then Palpatine will be able to transfer his essence into a Force-sensitive clone form, like we saw in Rise of Skywalker. Now personally, I hate anything that has to do with the Force being tied to microscopic life forms or genetics or blood samples. I liked it better as a mystical energy field. But I do like that the Empire is trying to harness this microscopic natural force so they can turn it into an industrial product. That is very on point for the message of the saga, which is basically machine bad, nature good. He brings Omega into the Vault, the super secure facility that we saw 2 episodes ago where they are also keeping Force-sensitive children. This kid, by the way, is playing with an anti-grav game and not using the Force. We see the same Myrlian, a Pantoran, and the Itachi kid from episode 10. Now, on the way into the Vault, they pass by several layers of lasers and red force fields meant to replicate the layers and rings of hell, to show that Omega is being buried in the deepest parts of this mountain where the Empire is committing its worst sin, child slavery. Although, you know, we did see Omega lead a child slave rebellion in season 2, so the Empire has basically put Lenin back in Russia here. So, like I said at the top, I have a few gripes about this episode. I do like this show overall, particularly when it focuses on Crosshair's arc. But anyone else feeling like the show is starting to get repetitive? We began the season in Mount Tantis with the Bad Batch looking for Omega. Omega escapes after just 1 episode in Mount Tantis. And then, I thought the show would have several episodes of the Bad Batch and Omega looking for each other, like how it took the Stark children 7 seasons of Game of Thrones to finally be reunited. But then, everybody was back together after just 1 episode. So then, the Bad Batch spend 2 episodes trying to find out what an M count means so they can find out why the Empire wants Omega, just so Omega can be told this information in this episode. And for the audience, this is boring because we already know what an M count is because we've seen The Mandalorian, The Phantom Menace, and this.
Somehow Palpatine returned.
Just like our Somehow Palpatine Returned t-shirt for sale at our merch store. So like, we are seeing a lot of story beats get repeated over and over instead of just moving the story forward. Like how Rampart doesn't know where Tantis is. So now we have to have an episode where we go find the guy who knows that information, who can maybe lead us to another guy, just like they had to go see Fennec Shan to lead them to Asajj Ventress, who essentially told them information that they didn't even really need to know because Omega finds it out in this episode. So in this season, we're getting a lot of characters characters just going in circles pursuing somebody who gives them information about a thing that then later we don't need anymore. Plus, we already had the episode where Carr learned about this vault. Now, because we, the audience, have already seen this vault, it diminishes the reveal at the end of this episode. Imagine if Omega walked into this vault and we saw these child prisoners for the first time. It would have been a gut punch at the end of this episode. But instead, we've already had an entire episode to process this information. I really think they could have just brought Omega into this cell and then shifted the POV back to Carr for an episode as she learned about the vault and we can see her internal conflict begin to grow. Even that sequence where they rescue Rampart. We've seen that sequence. It was in The Mandalorian season 2. It's same thing, same vehicle, same everything. Like, it's not that anything happening here is outright bad. I still think the show is good. I just think that it could have been great. Anyways, let me know your thoughts about this episode down in the comments or at me on Twitter. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe, smash that bell for alerts. For ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy.